Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Foundry by Forge College. So, in our last explainer together, we dug into the mechanics behind what is proof of history, which was an awesome look at how time and order are actually established on-chain. But today, today we're shifting gears a bit within our Ethereum dev stacks track. We're putting on our detective hats to figure out what happens when things, don't exactly go to plan. Because, let's be real, in Web3, things rarely work perfectly on the first try, right? So today, we're mastering the common types of smart contract bugs. You know how proof of history creates this super reliable sequence of events? Well, what happens when your smart contract sequence just suddenly fails and hits a brick wall? When you deploy a contract and a transaction reverts, it can honestly feel like a total disaster. You just get this massive wall of red text on your terminal. But I want us to reframe that right now. A reverting transaction is definitely not a disaster. It's actually a crime scene. And just like any good crime scene, it leaves clues behind. To solve it, you don't need to panic. You just need a blueprint inspector's keen eye to trace that evidence right back to the structural flaw. So here is our inspection blueprint for today. 1. The crime scene. 2. The 6 usual suspects. 3. The anatomy of reentrancy. And 4. The 5-step triage playbook to help you diagnose failures really fast. Let's get right into it.
All right, starting off with Section 1, the crime scene, focusing on diagnostics.
When we're talking about diagnostics, the absolutely fundamental thing to remember is that smart contracts are deterministic state machines. They don't just fail randomly because they're having a bad day, If a transaction reverts, or runs out of gas, or just behaves unexpectedly, it is entirely because the Ethereum virtual machine, the EVM, disagreed with a specific check. And the EVM actually hands you the evidence via what's called the revert payload. Sometimes this is a nice readable string, like insufficient balance, which is obviously incredibly helpful. Other times it's just a panic code, and occasionally you'll get a revert with absolutely no message at all, literally just the EVM giving you the silent treatment. But believe it or not, even that silence is a vital clue that tells you exactly where to start looking.
Which brings us to Section 2, the 6 usual suspects. Let's line them all up.
Here they are, our classic suspects in this smart contract detective story. We've got input validation, access control, arithmetic overflow, reentrancy, logic bugs, and gas or resource exhaustion. By just learning the observable symptoms of these 6 specific categories, you can almost immediately map a failure right back to its root cause. Let's break these down. We'll look at the first 3 here. First up is input validation. The typical symptom you'll see is a revert on an invalid parameter. So your very first check, boundary unit tests. Next is access control. I always like to think of this one as the VIP bouncer of your contract. If an unauthorized call actually succeeds, or worse, the owner gets locked out, well, your bouncer's asleep on the job. You need to immediately verify your owner-only or role-based logic. Third is arithmetic. The classic symptom here is panic code 0x11, or just completely wrong balances. It's kind of like a car odometer rolling past its maximum and snapping right back to 0. You've got to check your math operations and ensure all those safe math patterns are fully intact.
Okay, moving on to the remaining 3. We have reentrancy, where the main symptom is an inconsistent state, usually happening right after an external call. We're actually going to dive much deeper into this specific one in just a second. Next up are logic bugs. This is when your events emit in some totally unexpected order, or maybe a core invariant is broken. The fix here? Start adding state assertions to test your assumptions. Finally, gas exhaustion. The symptom for this is a brutal out-of-gas error. The culprit is almost always some heavy, unbounded loop that just guzzles gas like a Hummer. You'll definitely need to profile those hot loops and optimize them.
All right, Section 3, Anatomy of Reentrancy, Web3's absolute most infamous bug.
Let's walk through a vulnerable withdrawal function step by step to see how this works. Step 1, a user deposits funds. Very straightforward. Step 2, the contract hits a require guard, basically checking if the user actually has enough balance to withdraw. All good so far, right? But here is exactly where the crime happens. Step 3, the contract makes an external call to actually send the funds out. And only then, in Step 4, does it do the state update to reduce the user's balance. This brilliantly illustrates the exact moment of vulnerability. The core bug here is that the state update occurs after the external call. By sending out the money before you update the ledger, you are essentially leaving the front door completely wide open. When that external call happens, control passes over to the recipient's contract. If that recipient happens to be malicious, their contract can literally loop right back into your withdraw function before step 4 ever even happens. They can entirely drain the contract because your ledger still says they have a full balance. Crazy, right?
So the crucial point here is how we actually fix it. As the chief engineer of your contract, I am prescribing a structural reinforcement known as the checks effects interactions pattern. This is your golden rule. You must do your checks, like verifying balances, then apply your effects, which means updating the state ledger to show a zero balance, and only then perform your interactions, which is making that external call to send the ether. Update the state first, send the money second. Always. No exceptions.
Now for section 4, the 5-step triage, systematic diagnosis. I want to introduce you all to a 10-minute deterministic workflow. By sticking strictly to this timeline, you can diagnose failures efficiently without wasting hours going down the wrong rabbit hole. Minute 1, reproduce locally. Minute 3, inspect the payload. Minute 5, check access control. Minute 7, trace external calls. And finally, minute 10, check the math. Let's walk through this playbook. Step 1, reproduce deterministically in a local test environment. Look, if a transaction fails live on the network but works perfectly on your local machine, the code itself might actually be totally fine. The culprit is much more likely the environment. Maybe a token approval is missing, or perhaps the block timestamp is different. You always want to isolate whether it's a code-level invariant or an environment mismatch right off the bat. Step 2, inspect the revert payload. You need to match the evidence to the source code. If you get a string message, you can usually just Control-F your codebase and find the exact require statement guard that tripped. But if you get a panic, you know you're most likely dealing with something like an out-of-bounds array access or maybe a sneaky division by 0.
Step 3, verify access control and roles. A lot of the time, a revert happens super early in the function execution. This is a classic sign that your VIP bouncer is just totally asleep at the door. Check that the caller actually has the right wristband before you start digging into all that complex logic. It could be something as simple as the constructor not assigning ownership correctly upon deployment.
Step 4, analyze external call ordering and gas. If those first 3 steps clear, it's time to look at the trace. Are there multiple transfers happening within a single transaction? Because that is a massive red flag for reentrancy. Or do you see a really heavy loop iterating thousands of times? Boom, that's your gas exhaustion right there. And finally, step 5, narrow to invariance and arithmetic. If absolutely everything else looks solid, insert temporary assertions, those assert statements, into your code locally. Have the balances suddenly jumped unexpectedly? Does a counter end up negative for some reason? Assertions essentially act as tripwires to catch exactly where the math breaks down in your state transitions. Okay, section 5, closing the case. Let's master the triage. Let's do a quick summary of our main takeaways today. First, always match the symptom directly to the underlying mechanism. Those EVM error codes, they're your diagnostic signposts. Second, external call order matters immensely. You have to always update your state before you interact with untrusted addresses. And third, fast triage saves massive amounts of debugging time. Just stick to the workflow. And as a quick side note, if you really want to get hands-on with these workflows, we dive deep into setting up robust local testing environments in some of the other comprehensive programs and courses we offer here at Forge College. I'll leave you with this final, somewhat provocative thought. Your goal isn't just to be a really good detective after the fact. It's actually to be a master architect. Can you spot the structural flaw on the blueprint before the EVM ever has to enforce it? Because that is the true mindset of a top-tier Web3 developer. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep practicing, keep building up those mental models, and be sure to visit forge.college to learn more about this subject and explore our other extensive Web3 related topics. See you next time.